What makes a classic a classic? I guess it's one of those questions people perhaps are always pondering on YouTube or with their bookish friends and that kind of thing. What gives some works the right to be called classics and not others? Why are some works by authors classics and then other works by the same authors are just kind of forgotten about? What makes a classic a classic? Now, hopefully, at least from my point of view, we'll find out. Hello everybody, welcome to and welcome back to my channel Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and I hope so much that you're all doing very well. I'd also like to take the chance now to thank my wonderful patrons. As you can see them listed here, and if you want to join them, feel free to do so by looking at the link below. So this video came about really in conversation with my sister yesterday. We were talking about classics, and she asked me if certain books could be considered classics or not. And then of course we got into the whole thing about ancient classics and 19th century classics or modern classics and things like this. Why are some books in the Penguin modern classics range and others that are more recent are in the Black Penguin classics range? I mean, for example, like the Morrissey autobiography is a Black Penguin classic, and other works can be from the early 20th century are considered Penguin modern classics. And it did get me thinking, how do we define it? Now, of course, you can do a search on the internet and it will give you all sorts of ingredients that go into making a particular book a classic, things such as timelessness. When books can address universal themes and human experiences that continue to be relevant to us today, things that we can relate to, across different time periods and different cultures, and they delve into like the inner workings of human functions, let's say, such as relationships or emotions and societal issues and that kind of thing. And they can resonate with us, from whatever our background. Yeah, so that's definitely one thing. We have influence as another thing, that the work itself can still continue to influence future writers and other art forms, not including, not exclusive rather, to literature, can perhaps even influence art or music or anything like that, as they shape and contribute to the literary tradition, if you like, as a whole. Being an influential work certainly makes something a classic. If something is the peak of that particular genre and fulfills all the kind of criteria that some people have set up, I don't actually know who decides really at the end of the day that things are classics, or whether it's just some kind of organic process. But so we have timelessness, influence, of course quality of writing can have something to do with it. If the author can display a supremely high level of craftsmanship in their writing, in the language style and their ability to tell a story, then that of course can go some way, I suppose, to making it a classic. How the book was received, so critical acclaim is another one. What do today's literary experts, scholars, critics, of course, what do they make of that book? And they probably have a big say in whether something remains a classic or not, because I think classics can fall in and out of that term. I mean, I think Michael K. Vaughan in one of his videos went through the Big Orange Penguin classic book, and they had a section called The Vault, which are out of print classics. Now, they're not classics necessarily anymore if they're not in print, or are they? I don't know, but it does seem weird to me that if something is considered to be a classic form of literature, then it should probably still be available in print. So perhaps there is that thing that classics can fall in and out of that category. What perhaps also things like the complexity or the depth of the work is something that's important, be it the intricate character development, or the way the author crafts those particular characters, the themes in the book, how thought-provoking are they, do the books have multi-layered narratives, that kind of stuff. And yeah, again, it comes back to this kind of insight into the world and human nature. And I think those probably are, maybe, I think, the most important things. I guess also we can take into account things such as longevity, because there are so many authors who were extremely prolific in their time who have just fallen into relative obscurity today. And I do think we often have, I don't know if we really use the term correctly as well, because we almost think, or people label something a classic just because it's old, even though it might not be very good. Is everything on Project Gutenberg a classic? Well, depends again on what definition you want to use for something being a classic, and how subjective or objective is that definition. Are there books out there that you would consider to be a classic? Can you have your own idea of a classic? This book is a classic. Is, for example, my favorite work, Three Men in a Boat, a classic? Well, yes, it is, but it's not of course, it's not in the same literary level as some high regarded person such as George Eliot or Jane Austen. So other different levels of classics. I suppose what allows Three Men in a Boat to be a classic, even by most people's reckoning, is the fact, of course, it is an influential work in terms of humorism, right? So that is a kind of a standard work for the genre. It's a genre defining work, perhaps. So that allows it to be there. But there's many books. We can say, for example, if we take Henry Rider Haggard, we have, of course, his genre-defining works, such as She or King Solomon's Mines, are rightly considered classics. But then other works by him, such as Cleopatra or something, isn't well known, well thought out, and it's not a bad book. It's not bad at all, I don't think. I quite enjoy it. When we did this thing about what should be Penguin classics that aren't, it was one of my choices. So it just got me thinking, after this conversation, and I do think it is important to say that whether we have individual definitions of classics due to individual people, we also have, of course, classics can be determined by different communities or different societies, and I think that's also something to note, and the books themselves might not have the same impact on everyone, right? So depending on your community you live in, you might look at a certain work being of such importance that it would be determined a classic for your community, for your society, but it might not have any of the things mentioned before to other societies or other communities. So therefore, there are definitely different classics from different countries that aren't considered a classic across the world, right? So that's something interesting, I think, anyway. But Pan Macmillan, the publisher, when I was looking into this, they have a blog post on what makes a classic, and it was interesting reading, and they mention a lot of the things that I just said there. So but I thought it'd be kind of cool to kind of put a tag at the end of this video for you to try. Let's just have a look at the blog. I will leave a link to the blog post below. But they ask, of course, they give a brief definition of a classic, right? So they say, put simply, a classic novel is a book that has stood the test of time because it's so good. It has a gripping story which is expertly crafted and brilliantly expressed. But of course, it's not just about the story. Like any good recipe, there are a number of key ingredients that make a book a classic. Now, I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I mean, certainly those things are help, but there are plenty of classics that really are not gripping and are actually boring, But then that could be a subjective thing, right? Just to me. I mean, I can pick up something and say, oh yeah, everybody raves about this as an absolute classic, but no, to me it's completely not gripping. Or there are others where maybe actually the majority of people don't think it's that gripping, and it's just academic sort of book critics say it's gripping and therefore allow the label of classic to be applied to it. And they go through and say there are different ingredients. They liken it to a recipe. Different ingredients that go into making classics. A lot of the things I mentioned already, such as the complexity and depth of the writing, how well it articulates universal themes like death, love, morality, adversity, that kind of thing. Is it subversive? Does it make it particularly memorable or significant? Does it define a particular time or place, and that kind of thing? And so they go through and make a list of books that fit into those to that criteria that they laid out. And that's where the tag goes, because I think it'd be fun if you can maybe make your own list according to the criteria that Pam Macmillan set out. So the first one, first prompt, if you like, is the one with a gripping plot and universal themes. Now, they've chosen Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I'm not going to do mine yet, because I might do this as a separate tag and a separate video. Otherwise, it's going to be too long. But I'm just going to give you what they give. And as I say, even if you don't have a channel, just leave your answers in the comments below. But so, what would be a classic that you would say is one with a gripping plot and universal themes? They say Frankenstein. Next up is the subversive one, and they've gone for Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. The third prompt, the one which defines a time and a place, and they've gone for Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Now, I wonder if you agree with these choices as well. Next prompt is the complex, groundbreaking one, and I suppose there are a few of those, but they've chosen Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. Up next is the ones with archetypal characters. And probably it's a good choice. They've gone with The Study in Scarlet and The Sign of Four by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So, yeah, that's probably true. Up next is the one that's a complete one-off. And they've gone with Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. What would you go for? The one we quote from all the time, and that's George Orwell's 1984. I'm not sure I quote from it that often, to be honest. Do you? What would be your most quotable classic? And the last one, the last prompt, the last category they've done is the so-called rediscovered classic. And they went for a book called Passing by Nella Larsen. And I wonder if you also have any rediscovered classics, or if you don't, then substitute that with a book you think should be considered a classic, at least if it isn't now. I mean, how old does a book have to be a classic? See, that's another thing. So you could go for something that you like, that is modern, so you can hypothesize whether or not you think that book will be a classic in the future. So there we go. I'll leave the prompts that aren't mine. As I say, I didn't create them. They come from this blog, Pam Macmillan. But I think it kind of lends itself nicely to a tag. And as I say, I'll probably do my own version a bit later on. but because if I had, then this video would be much longer than the 15 or so minutes it already is. So yeah, give it a go in a video or in the comments below. So tell me what you think, if you agree with what I said about what makes a classic, or if you have any other things you'd like to add to that, or if you think I'm talking complete rubbish. That's all fine. Leave the comments below, and also have a go at those prompts and think of some works that fit those categories there. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Do take care. Have a wonderful day. All the best. Bye bye.